This homepage had a really clean design, but it buried the one thing their buyers actually care about, how much time it saves them. This new carbon accounting SaaS spun out of years of consulting work, and the founder-led experience is its real edge. In this Cred Jam, we dig into why the hero copy needs to lead with the save 6 weeks messaging words, how founder-led video beats faceless demos, and the simple way to use existing consulting testimonials as social proof. Let's get into it.
Hi, I'm Will Marshall. I'm founder and CEO of Bright Sustainability, a training consultancy company, and Emitrics, a carbon accounting software startup.
I love it. How did you get into building out Emitrics?
So through my training and consultancy business, I work with maybe 10, 20 different clients every week, and they were coming to me with the same sort of problems, which is, okay, we've done training, our leadership team understands what we've got to do around decarbonisation now from that sort of high level. Mm-hmm. Okay, what now? Like, where do we actually go? Or, we've got companies who maybe they're a few years into this process, they've had contracts that have required them to do a little bit of carbon tracking and carbon accounting, and they've got all those numbers in place, but the time it's taken them, the work they've had to put into preparing that data, the money that they spent on sustainability consultants has just been huge. And then they kind of got to the end where, so they've got this audit ready document and it's great and it's ticked their contractual requirements. But what now? So, what action do we take to actually start to hit those reduction targets that we've just had to set? And that's what drove Emitrics really is, okay, how can we help those companies, particularly sort of, SME size companies, maybe 10 to 100 head size, they've not got a huge sustainability team. How can I actually deliver the best value for them?
Totally. And I have a bunch of questions, but before I kind of get into those questions, for people who are listening to this, who don't know, can you maybe define what carbon accounting is?
Yeah, sure. So from the highest possible level terms, it's having a ledger of your carbon impact as a company. So the same way you have your profits and loss ledger and you've got your full record of your financial transactions for the year, it's understanding where you've had a carbon impact. So that's your direct impact, so your emissions from anything that's owned by your business, your organization, but also everything in your supply chain as well. And that's really key to reduction, is understanding that it includes that as well. And there's not a huge amount of regulatory requirements yet for smaller businesses to do that. But what we're seeing is this incredible supply chain push. So the largest companies are getting required to do it, or public contracts are getting required to do it, and this is getting pushed right down to the smallest of companies. And it's kind of important, if it's not something you're aware of, to have a rough idea that this might be, it doesn't really matter where you are in the world, what industry you're in. Probably carbon accounting is coming for you in the next 2, 3, 4 years, if not this year.
Yeah, totally. And what would the process look like for a company who needs to do carbon accounting without kind of your software?
So there's probably as many different ways to do it as there are companies out there, and it is a little bit of a wild west. So there's a bunch of protocols that companies are supposed to follow, but there's lots of different ways to approach that. Typically what it looks like is basically getting an inventory of all your carbon touch points. So you'd start off with your scope 1 emissions. So that's your direct emissions from everything you control. So you're looking at any fuels you've burnt being the big one, but it can also be like heating and cooling, for example. Then you're looking at scope 2. So that's working out, okay, how much fuel have we, how much electricity have we used as an organization? So what sources of that come from? What is the carbon impact of any of that we have purchased? And so those two bits are relatively easy to tackle. There's stuff that you've probably got a really good record of, whether it's your utility bills or or your fuel card bills. You're probably able to tackle that fairly easily. Scope 3 is where it gets really scary. So that's, as I mentioned before, that's everything in your supply chain. It's your employee commuting. It's all of your business travel. It's a whole host of different things. And this then, when you're going to approach that, it's a matter of probably working with a sustainability consultant, and they're probably going to get you to prepare a whole bunch of data from your ERP system, from your travel booking system, from your fuel cards, whatever that might be, put it into something usable that they can take away, explain what it all is. And then just as finance teams, hand that data off to an accountant, and then you spend 3 or 4 months going back and with the accountant asking questions, that's exactly how it works in carbon accounting. So they'll be asking, okay, what was this? What was this? Who was this flight with? What was it for? How is it attributable? And then they'll come back to you with an inventory, that carbon accounting ledger of your impact for a given period. And unless you spend a lot of money on it, or they're a really good carbon accountant or sustainability consultant, that's kind of it. You're not going to have much in the way of actionable insights. Sorry, Jessica, I think you muted.
Sorry, and what are some of the types of companies that are getting the most value out of either kind of the consulting that you've done and or now the software as well?
Yeah, okay. So that's there's 2 kind of ways that you could stage value around that. So whether it's going to be literally that growth or financial value of, okay, there's a whole host of new contracts we can apply for now, there's a whole host of new things that we can tender for. So a lot of the companies that I've worked with have come to me in the first place because there's something that requires them. So whether it's, for example, the BBC in the UK, most of its contracts now for its supply chain require its vendors to sign up to the Science Based Targets Initiative. So it's a pretty onerous requirement. And so it's that value of, okay, now we can move forward with that and we can actually access new markets. The other flip side to that is the value of, okay, if we're going to do decarbonisation, probably that's going to come alongside efficiency. So, the first instance we'll be tackling, okay, where can we use less stuff, or where can we actually, get energy in a more sustainable manner? Hand in hand in terms of investment now, in terms of efficiency bonuses for your bottom line. I'm really seeing as well that additional value, especially if you're direct to consumer, of actually being a sustainably focused company and able to then back that up. So you're not going to be accused of greenwashing. You've got your ducks in a row. You've got your messaging in a row. You've got some people who really understand those tricky queries from a few comments on Instagram about things you've done in terms of your climate claims. So really important in terms of sort of unlocking that and actually future-proofing as well your business.
Yeah, do you want to go ahead and share kind of your screen and walk through a little bit, and let's kind of walk through your homepage?
Absolutely.
Well, the first thing I'm kind of immediately seeing on your homepage is really good design. It's super clear, minimal, but also not so minimal that it doesn't tell you what you do. Can you walk me through a little bit kind of what your thought process was when it came to this version of your homepage?
Yeah, sure. So it's a really new version of the homepage. So it's a few weeks old. And the biggest thing that I wanted to get from this was just to hit those maybe 1 or 2 pain points that people are going to be coming with. So that first thing, transform your data into carbon insights. First of all, pain point around data collection. Am I going to have to get other things? And then insights. So as I mentioned earlier, one of the biggest things that I hear is, okay, we've spent all this money, we've gone through all this pain, we've got this report. What now? What are the things that I can actually do? So I wanted to hit that. And the follow-up really there with the subtitle, Carbon Accounting Shouldn't Be Rocket Science. Again, just trying to appeal to the fact that I'm not trying to get those customers who are already super au fait with climate accounting, carbon accounting, and know what they need to do. It's about removing those barriers to entry. You don't have to go and send somebody off for training for weeks or months. You might need a bit of internal upskilling to understand climate science, but you can get started straight away. And then really, apart from the explanation under there, just straight to the call to action. So right now we're piloting with a bunch of companies. I want more people on that wait list. So that's going to be that main call to action.
Yeah. And in your own words, from talking to people who are in your pilot program or on the wait list, what is their number 1 pain point?
Time. It's always time. It's, predominantly if you're a smaller company, as I said, it doesn't have a sustainability team, somebody is having to do this as part of their job. Whether that's your ops director, it's your finance manager, you might have a sustainability manager if you're lucky, but they've got a huge list of things to do as well. What they don't want to do as part of carbon accounting is lose 2 months of their year to this process. And that's one of those common things I keep hearing. So one of the companies in our pilot, they work with a really good sustainability consultancy. They're great. The outputs are fantastic. But before they get started on that process each year, it takes two of their team 6 weeks full time to prepare the data. So it's all about that time lost straight away.
Yeah. So I just heard a couple of things there. One, my ears perked up when you said, "Oh, I'm hearing this over and over again already," which is saving time. And that one case is, saving 6 weeks of just data collection before they can even get started. And then I see your homepage and I see your hero section, and it's transform your data into carbon insights. Carbon accounting shouldn't be rocket science. Nothing in this hero section has anything to do with saving time.
Yeah, it's a great shout. It's not there at all. So yeah.
Yeah. So my challenge to you is, could you maybe change the H1 to be something along the lines of save 6 weeks or however long, on average it is on carbon accounting with, your software. Not obviously in that thing, but that's kind of your, what I would call a messaging wedge. AKA, what is the number one pain point that your ideal buyers have? And making that wedge be the first, which is that kind of that final thing that they're going to do before they sign up for your software. So I'd be like, can you lead with that wedge where they're actually in the hero section, ideally within your H1, and then suddenly you use the rest of your homepage to kind of explain exactly why this is important, what your software does, how it makes carbon accounting so much easier. And that's kind of where you can start to basically what I'd consider wow them. So you have that initial wedge to wow moment.
Yeah, I think that's a brilliant. I mean, it's such an actionable thing to get that sort of above the fold change, right? That solved that problem straight away. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I would definitely challenge you and be like, your wedge is saving a buttload of time. Put that in there. Another thing that I noticed is I know that image is actually a demo. My question to you is, you're a newer company. You obviously have a ton of experience from the consultancy side, turn software. I can definitely relate to that as someone who's also building software. So kudos there. My question to you is, why aren't you leaning a little bit more into the fact that you can do things that quote unquote Fortune 100 companies can't do? So instead of having, like, I like your demo, but have you thought about narrating it yourself? Maybe adding a video in the corner to make it a little bit more professional, but still like Loom style. So you're kind of showcasing your own background as the founder. And that is going to be one of your competitive advantages to get a lot more customers, because Fortune 100 companies can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So that's actually kind of the biggest part of the marketing plan for the next 3 months, really, is that founder-led communications, right? So I know full well that it's been my experience in my previous companies as well, that it's very easy for me to sit around a table and convince somebody to go with whatever we're doing. And then, when that translates to this sort of faceless messaging on whatever platform we're using, you lose a huge chunk of that. So absolutely, the thing we're working on the next 3 months is a whole load of short form video featuring myself largely, and also, yeah, it's been on the list for a little while to do. I'm embarrassed to say, to get a narrated version of that demo up with myself in it.
I mean, I totally get it. Cobbler shoes problem. There's a million things you should be doing and you are going to do, but they take time. My even kind of challenge that can be a little bit helpful, and something that I've done as well, is like, even if it's a little rough around the edges, do like a Loom video. You can start and then, have something up there that kind of leads with that personality and leads with kind of the founder-led marketing approach, because it definitely works. And it is a key advantage that pretty much any startup has. And then you can always just go ahead and polish it even more in a month or whatever, but kind of starting with something and putting something out there that is 70 to 80% is often better than having something more generic that's just live for a couple of years.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I totally agree. I think it's it's one of those things that I'm sure you've found this with many people, especially when you're getting over that first moment as a founder of a new business to say, I've done this with my previous businesses. You can create something those first moments where you're actually putting it out there for people to poke at and to see what you've done. There's quite a hard sort of thing to jump over there, and you can sort of say, okay, right, well, we'll do the founder-led stuff, we'll do at 70% make it scratchy, and yeah, it's just a matter of, I guess, pulling the trigger on that for myself, as it is with lots of people. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of covered making your hair section a little bit more of a wedge, adding some more personality. Do you want to go scroll down and you kind of look at everything else? So the next thing I'm kind of thinking is, okay, why choose? Why choose you? My question is I like this, but is the main problem of kind of saving time super, super apparent already within the wedge, or do you maybe need to have one section directly above that just kind of agitates why, you already said it yourself earlier on in this conversation, carbon accounting is already a thing for large companies. It's happening for SMBs and professional service firms as well. Should you maybe add like a really small block either in this section or directly right above it that just kind of agitates why this problem is growing and something that you definitely need to be considering?
Yeah, so I think there's a very there's a valid challenge there, and if you look at our pitch deck, we're leading with problem, and and that then that overall picture of that changing market and why it's going to be more of a problem, and that's not translating into the homepage. So yeah, absolutely, I think there's a very valid challenge there. There's something there to be done about explaining that larger picture, I think.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to be killer. And like you're already kind of dancing around a lot of it, and it sounds like your pitch deck. And then just from this conversation, you already know what it is. Adding that in there, because then at that point you're leading with the wedge for people who already know. So you're making it incredibly easy for someone to sign up for your wait list or sign up for a pilot. But for the people who are not, who are on your homepage and hearing about you for the first time, or maybe they need to hear about you 7 times because that's kind of good marketing, everyone else on your homepage who this kind of acts as your main calling card. And that problem section is like one of the first things you should do. So it's like the wedge, explain the problem, explain your solution with the benefits behind it, social proof, final CTA, secondary CTA if people aren't ready to join our wait list already. The next thing I see, so the next thing is you have why choose your software. Makes sense. You're kind of introducing the software. I like simple data import, comprehensive coverage, and actionable insights. It definitely does tell you what that is. My question to you, more than anything else, is there kind of generic by themselves? Is there a way that you can kind of showcase either screenshots or just be a little bit more specific so people know exactly what it is that they're buying?
Yeah, so I think 100%. And actually, if you go down to the next section about how it works, we're kind of using the screenshots that I think actually would probably be better in that why choose, showing those sort of keyframe moments of the user flow, almost in the wrong place. So yeah, I think that there's certainly validity to that.
Do you want to scroll down to the how it
Yeah,
works
sure.
section? Yeah, I love this. Like this basically just kind of almost answered my exact question, which is maybe just get rid of why choose and just lead with this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because this is already so much better, and like you can already see all the screenshots. You know what people are getting, and yeah, so you kind of explained the solution pretty well. Ready to simplify carbon accounting. That makes sense. Scroll down to the next section. Scroll down to where it says ready to simplify. Okay, cool. I like this. This is the final CTA. One question I have for you is I know this is a newer software, but I also know that you have a massive background in this from, I'm guessing, consulting clients. The one thing that is glaringly missing from this page is social proof. Do you have any sort of ref testimonials, ideally from the software side, but even from your consulting work that you can kind of put on here so you can kind of anchor with ideally 3 testimonials or like, one banger one?
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that I guess I'm aware that we're lacking at the moment. So we will have, as we go through these pilots that we're going through, part of the outputs of that will be case studies, testimonials, all of that sort of stuff, that social proof that we're lacking at the moment. But we've got some great testimonials for the consultancy side and the training side that absolutely it's not being used there. And it's a very valid point that although there's a link through in the header to the other side of the business, that really that sort of that cachet that we built up from the consulting and training isn't being used on this side. So yeah, it's 100% valid.
Yeah, why isn't it being used? It feels like it's kind of like your massive competitive advantage. You've been in the space for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't have a good answer for that, other than I guess my consideration while building this page was not to confuse the messaging too much. So not to, we're talking about carbon accounting software. Do I want to bring in any reference to training and consultancy if that's not ultimately what we're trying to sell with Emitrics? So I think there's probably a balancing act there. There's probably a little bit of a sensible middle ground to find.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely fair. Like, obviously, you don't want to like lead too much into it, but I almost feel like you're kind of going too much in the opposite direction, where you're not exactly where you're almost losing one of your biggest competitive advantages. You've been in the space for a while, so one of the things that would be really easy and a very easy win is right after how it works and right before this final CTA, add a new block with just 3 testimonials from your consulting work. You might want to probably frame it a little bit more and just kind of massage it. But you can be like, hey, been in the industry for X number of years. Here's what people are saying, sort of thing, right there.
Yeah.
You might also want to add in something about kind of who you are as the founder, or that could literally just be in your demo video in the hero section. So just kind of leaning into, hey, X years in the industry. This is kind of what I know. Now we're building software as well as our kind of training and normal consulting as well. That's a way to kind of get across the competitive advantage without necessarily having to commit to doing consulting within the software business.
Yeah, for sure. That makes a lot of sense. And yeah, again, on that list of things is the about us section on the page to really explain team, me, and what the background is to this. But absolutely, and I think there should be, to be honest, thought about that social proof in terms of the outputs and pilot program and stuff like that, and that would be coming. Haven't really thought about that, about really connecting the social proof from the other side at this point. But I think there's as you say, there's a way that you can frame that to make it very valid.
Yeah, that's like your golden opportunity. Like, one of the things, if you just want to scroll back up to the top of the page.
Sure.
One of the biggest things that I see here is just lean more into that wedge of time saved, but also just lean a lot more into your unfair advantage as a founder in the space, and you're not new to this space. So take in those consulting insights, take in that training stuff, add in some of that social proof early on. So you can kind of that gives you a lot more legitimacy, and it's going to help you get a lot more traction on your wait list and your early customers than if you didn't use it.
Yeah, I think that's totally all absolutely correct. I think yeah, absolutely. We need to be dragging in that wealth of experience. Doing it from the other side, it's the consultancy business is a great lead generator for this business, but not using it as an opportunity in the opposite direction.
Before we wrap up,
I think really, the other thing I'd say, again, this transition from it's same industry, but different sort of product, is really, I guess, my learning experience in the last few months has been, don't abandon the things you know about the messaging or the techniques to do this because it's a slightly different product, or you're trying to, I'm not selling an 8-hour training session. I'm selling a business subscription, because I think a lot of the same things are still valid. And I think that's something that a few months ago I was losing. I'm starting to bring in a little bit more now. And I think that would be the biggest piece of advice I'd have to myself just a few months ago, really. Just learn what's still valid, that you can use the same techniques, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're sitting on kind of a gold mine of insights and a gold mine of competitive advantage. Use it.
Yeah, brilliant.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming into Clarity Jams.
Thank you very much for having me.